A National Day of Service, hacking. That's right, connecting the experiences and insights of champions for change all over the country with the skills and resources of citizens ready to contribute to the solution. This day will not be the same in each city. Communities decide which event structure best suits their local interest and which challenges to tackle and solve. Depending on the local needs of the community, the event might be a block party, a hackathon, a meetup, or an unconference, or a free space, or something else entirely. Greetings, everyone. It's Friday, March 21st, 2014, and this is Tech Talk with Technology Association of Georgia President Tino Mantella. I'm your guest host, Frank Baia. The National Day of Hacking, 41 events planned in 35 cities across 10 states, districts, and territories. It all takes place this May 31st through June 1st, 2014, in cities across the nation. An event that will bring together technologists, entrepreneurs, social activists, designers, and citizens to improve their communities and the governments that serve them. Up to the Tech Talk on the National Day of Civic Hacking is Llewellyn. Large-scale international project manager for many years, Ali has extensive experience in envisioning, training, and equipping large and small teams to implement effective and sustainable programs for change. Learn more about the National Day of Hacking and what's happening across Georgia as we speak with Ali. But be prepared to mark your calendars and hack for change. This edition of Tech Talk is brought to you by GlobalSpeak.com, new media consultants, corporate video and audio communications, video and audio production and distribution, live and virtual event production. Tag TV and Tag Radio is a service of GlobalSpeak.com, creatively delivering powerful marketing, video, and audio solutions. Ali, welcome to Tech Talk.
Thanks. It's great to be here.
I think everyone is acutely concerned, especially in recent political issues and worldwide geopolitics, the scale and the scope of private-public mass collaboration with to improve governance and to engage citizens in conversation. This whole process of hacking, the national hacking, certainly the National Day of Civic Hacking, has really taken on such an important significance. Let's start. A lot of our TAG listeners and a lot of our Tech Talk radio listeners are somewhat familiar with it, but maybe go into a little bit of detail about what is civic hacking.
Sure, I'd be happy to. So National Day of Civic Hacking is a movement that brings together technologists, entrepreneurs, social activists, educators, all kinds of people to improve our communities and the governments that serve them. So it's where we traditionally talk about hacking as software development and kind of going in and taking other people's software work and using it for your own purposes. We talk about civic hacking as communities coming together, looking at the needs of their community and finding ways to solve those problems. And so this weekend provides people opportunities to get all citizens engaged in this kind of civic hacking work. And many of the events are based on proven models provided by Code for America, Transparency Camp, Innovation Endeavors, Random Hacks of Kindness. We also have new models this year, such as one that I'd love to talk about called Free Space. That was a new creation born of last year's National Day of Civic Hacking. But basically the idea is just lots of innovation, growing the community around that kind of innovation, and increasing the change locally to see that kind of impact.
Now, I think you've really gotten into the deliverable, the result, what's the point, more or less would be the question, and I think you've kind of answered that. But maybe get a little bit more specific about some of the individual activities that you mentioned, and especially go into the new one.
Sure. So we have a number of models. So the idea of National Day of Civic Hacking is that we do a lot to cultivate an open innovation ecosystem in our cities across the country. So we wanted to see what would happen if we helped the technology innovation go beyond the San Franciscos and the Austins and the New York Cities and get into smaller communities and be able to build mentorships between those kind of communities and see those relationships develop so that kind of work could impact everyone. So we have 5 key models. One is the traditional hackathon, so usually software, but sometimes hardware as well. Really encouraging a number of makers to participate this year. We have the unconference model, historically also known as a bar camp. And one of our chief events for that will be Transparency Camp, taking place in Washington, D.C. We'll have the block party model, and I know that our largest block party this year is actually in Georgia. It's going to be in Augusta. It's called Super Happy Augusta, and they're looking at how to build a whole community around this kind of innovation. We have a brigade launch. So Code for America runs local organizations called brigades, and so we'll launch brigades in a number of communities that don't have them. And then we have free space. The story of free space is fascinating. So last year, a small team in San Francisco, ready to participate in the first National Day of Civic Hacking, said, what could we do differently? How could we hack our neighborhood? And so for $1, they rented a building for 30 days. And they basically opened that building to the whole community. So they didn't want to turn it into something that made profit. They wanted to turn it into something that made the resources and the vision and the nature of the community accessible to everyone. So people came in and planted gardens. People came in and they built furniture. People led classes. And it became just this central hub for the good of everyone in the neighborhood. And so we've kind of adopted that model and are going to also see a number of free space events happen as part of National Day of Civic Hacking, where people create these community spaces for people to come together and do something new. So those are kind of our five main models.
Now, you've mentioned community a couple of times, and I think one of the things we talk about here a lot in Tech Talk is that sometimes the semantics don't keep up with the technologies. When you're talking communities here, you're talking about multiple communities, correct? I mean, things like you mentioned. Well, you go ahead. Tell us a little bit more about how you might define what the communities would be.
So the communities happen in a lot of different circles, right? So anyone can participate in National Day. It requires really diverse individuals. So the vision is kind of that we're creating a platform that draws together for example, the software development community together with the maker community, together with scientists and designers and educators, that we would start to see overlap in these different levels of communities around specific challenges. The other kind of angle of the community is to sit between cities and between states. And so, for example, you guys working in Georgia, that you would see among all your communities that are taking part that there would be interaction and build-up so that you could magnify the impact and the influence that you have, not just locally, but take it to the state level and subsequently beyond that to the national level. So we're working both in the circle of event types. So all the hackathon community, we're working around challenge communities, so the diversity of perspectives that people share to help solve a problem, and then in geographical communities to build those partnerships between those cities and localities to enable increased impact.
Now, you mentioned cities, and especially you've commented on a couple of things that are happening here in Georgia. Where are the cities?
So there's the cities, the map is coming together quite nicely. We right now have, I think last count, 72 locations registered for the upcoming event. And you can see the map on hacksforchange.org. We're slowly getting cities updated there and getting them added to the list. But our vision is really to see at least one event in every state and every U.S. territory.
I think you got a lot of attention going on throughout the state of Georgia. I think there's several cities that are I know that are participating, some of the statewide chapters, and I know for the last couple of years, some of our northwest cities, some of the more remote, what they call micro, I can't think of micro city, major cities, micropolitan. I heard the word today for the first time, so it's stumbled around to capture it.
That's exactly what we're looking for.
But now tell us, how do we get connected? Exactly how do you join it, or do you join it? And give us some of the specifics in terms of dates and maybe a place that we can hook up online to get more information.
Sure. So the second annual event is coming up on May 31st and June 1st in communities across America. You can sign up to lead an event or to join an event near you at hackforchange.org. Some events are a little earlier and some are a little later, since we've already grown to where one day or one weekend is just not enough to contain all the civic hacking.
Great stuff.
And so it's kind of going beyond that. So as you guys well know, last year we had more than 11,000 citizens participate in 83 cities. You in Georgia had 7 locations with more than 1,000 people. So we're excited to see that community continue to grow.
Well, Ali, lots of success for this year. It's hard to believe it's only the second one. It seemed like it came from out of nowhere, and now it's a mainstay event that I know a lot of people have begun planning early on and are looking to participate. Hopefully with some of the awareness out of our Tech Talk today, maybe even more will join in. Certainly they will once they get some more information. But thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule and for joining us today on Tech Talk.
Thank you so much for having me.